So, back to where I was when I was started out. We were working with the Chromacraft Rustina product today, and this is the Nick Agar Signature Series product, and it gives us metallic finishes in copper, bronze, and iron. So we can simulate an actual iron finish, and they do contain, the paints contain the actual metals, the iron and the copper and the bronze. And we have two different, I'm so confused about all that stuff. Two different primers, and then we have the three colors. And then we have two agents, the spritz wetting agents or patina agents that we spray on. Now, this is one of those things that takes time, so it's kind of hard to try and get the kitchen show worked out for a live stream. And then, of course, we throw the electronic issues in there, and hey, I'm going to have a great day. So I've done some pieces ahead of time. Some pieces I have here are from last year that I played with. And then I've got some pieces down here by the heater trying to dry to get the primer dry. And then here on this board, which I'll show you here, you can see better. So earlier this morning I came, and this is just a piece of plywood, and I put on the rough primer, which is called Road Rash. I'll come over here there. The Road Rash has the texture in it, and it's the brown one you see here on the end. So the texture is built into this particular primer. The other primer is a gunmetal gray primer, and we'll put that there. And all these are the gunmetal gray. So these primers are just about dry, and like I said, I hurried them up with the hair dryer. So what I want to do is I'll go ahead and put the different colors on these samples. We'll put the color on, we'll spritz them, and then we'll watch them start to change over the course of the next hour and a half or so. It does take a little while for the effect to happen. So I'll do this first, and you'll see how I spritz it on. The primers are already done. We'll spritz on there, and we'll let that just be doing its thing as it starts to change the colors. Then I have the pieces that I've already primered down here. But first what I'll do is after we do that, I got a couple more pieces here, and I'll show you how we put the primer on, and then we'll just set those off because the primer needs to dry. But I want to go through all the different stages, so I think I've kind of got this pretty well staged to get us where we need to be, as long as the internet keeps working. Now these two pieces I have here, like I said, I did these a few years ago. And now, as you guys know, I run a green screen here. I use a chroma key. And so I'm going to go back to the overhead and turn off my keys so that these won't shimmer so much. And you won't see like the window and the back wall on the pieces. Okay. Now these, I don't know what they were. It doesn't really matter. These have been finished, and they have a couple of different finishes on them. This is the copper, right? So I used the gray primer, which is the smooth primer, and I may have put a little bit of bronze underneath as well. And this is one of these projects where the more you spritz it and the more you play with it, it's kind of like a little bit of a black magic to get the different effects. Each time you spritz it with the aging spritzer, it will change a little bit more. So you just kind of keep playing with it, and till you get to the look that you're after. So Jeff is saying it might be too early to ask. It's never too early to ask. Does wood movement affect the reactive paint? I'm going to say no, Jeff, on that one. This stuff is, I mean, you'd have to have it moving a ton, in which case the wood wasn't dry enough anyway. I think a little bit of warpage and things like that, it's not going to be a problem. And that's crazy because I'm still seeing the color. Hopefully I'm seeing my window there. I don't know why, because I have the key turned off. I don't know. One of those days. Anyway, this was, I don't even know what kind of wood it was. And this has and this is my favorite finish to use with these, the WRU20, which is the water-based urethane finish. It doesn't really leave a finish. There's no sheen to it. It's ultra matte, if you will. And I like that a lot for these. Or you can also use a satin. I've got some satin right here. I'm showing you that satin in that way. And I can't believe that thing is doing what it's doing over there. I'm going to grumble all day. I'll tell you that right now. I'm going to grumble all day, just because of the electronics not doing what I want. This piece, this bowl, this has got the iron paint on it, as well as probably the bronze. And you can see how shiny this one is. This was an experiment. And what I did here is I sprayed a gloss lacquer on, which I don't highly recommend. It gets, I mean, unless that's the look you're looking for, like a glazed pottery, then that would be okay. If we look at the other side of this, if I flip it over, you'll see the same type of colors, except that there's no shiny finish on it. All right, it's, other than right here in the very center where I put it on the base. It's nice and matte. And again, this is a combination of the iron and the bronze. I'm thinking the bronze and the copper can look similar sometimes depending on how the patina works. This is probably definitely the copper up here. This is a great project for things that have holes in it and your pieces that are beat up, that aren't the best in the world, because then they become something else entirely. So let me pop that back on, pop over here, come back up to the front. So again, these two pieces, and they may be looking weird in your screen now. These have been finished for some time. I did them last year. It's a great thing to do. Great project. So let me get now to playing with getting the color paints on these samples for you. And I'm thinking that I'm going to leave the sample board right where it's at and put you on the side camera. Put you over there, and I've got all my paints, and I'm going to put on my gloves, because this is a glove type of project. Okay. Okay, so let me get a glove. Hopefully, guys, the feed is still coming through okay. Again, I don't see things not work until 20 seconds later, when it doesn't show up on my screen anymore. So get on my gloves. With these good old Harbor Freight China chip bristle brushes are the way to go, disposables. Okay, as you can see here, I have two that I was using for the primers. And if you'll keep them wet, they'll stay usable for a while. If not, then they dry out and they get all stiff on you. So we'll be using those again. So on the far end, I've got the road rash. And for that one, I'm going to add the iron paint, because the iron goes really well with the heavy texture. Always give it a shake. And I can pop you into the overhead here as well. Always give it a good shake, and then we're going to give it a stir. And again, this is the iron. I've already pre-opened these guys up. So the iron paint looks just like the Gun Battle Gray primer, believe it or not. Okay. Fresh brush out for that. And I'm going to pop you back to the end camera now. My gloves will work through there. Now what we'll do is we'll brush these on. Well, I'll do all the colors, and then we'll spritz them with the spritzer. The primer underneath is dry for the most part, and I've got some tape there. And this iron will look just like metal. It actually has the iron particles in it. And when the reactive agent goes on, I'm trying to get that fairly wet. And we do want to spritz these while they're still wet. Now, it's cool enough in here today that I don't have to worry about these drying right away. So that's the iron on the texture, the road rash. I'm going to come all the way down here to the other end and put the iron on a smooth finish as well. Okay? And you probably can't quite see that one. You can just barely see that in the camera. And hopefully these will have changed enough for us by the time we finish up today. It may take 2 coats to get that red to hide away, but then again, it's going to look a little bit like the iron anyway. And I'm going to put these, keep each brush with different colors. Okay. So I'll put this out in front of our iron one with its brush. All right. Add the next color. That's my gunmetal gray primer. I'm just going to set this off over there for the moment. And I'm going to get my other road rash primer out of the way until we need it. The next color will be the bronze. And we'll put the bronze right here. Yeah, Jeff, it's grainy probably because there's something with the feed today. When I was looking at it on the Facebook on my other monitor inside, I could see that the same thing. There's just ghosts in the machines today, unfortunately. So you can see, and I'll jump into the overhead for you here real quick. There's the bronze, and you can see I shook it real good. All right. So after we get all these done, then we'll start playing with the pieces. But I want to get these. There, I popped the air bubble in it. And make sure that it's well mixed. Again, shaking it did a good job, but it doesn't hurt to stir. Okay. Stir right down to the bottom. And I'm over here kind of working on the lathe as my workbench area. All right, and we'll put a coat of bronze. Now, the bronze and the copper both use the blue-green aging agent, and the iron uses the brown rust iron aging agent. Okay, so I'm going to leave this open because I'm going to show you a little something extra in a minute. So the next one is copper. And here's your copper colors up close. You can see the copper color there. All right. Oh, I'm supposed to be turning off that key there too. Video has been interrupted. Yes, it's one of those days. Stir my copper up really well. And coat her up. Okay. Now the next one I'm going to do, here I'm going to do copper and bronze. And then the third one I'm going to put all three on it. So here's some copper. Just some splashes of copper around on there. And that's the fun thing about this is you can come back and do multiple coats over and over and over. And I'm going to put that up there. And I'm going to take my bronze and do in the rest of it. Cover that. So we have a combination of copper and bronze in this one. Now because this brush just picked up the two different colors, I'm going to discard that or set it off. You could clean it off, but I don't want to put this brush back into either of the colors because now it has both colors on it. So we'll just set it over here in one of my famous clean/unclean piles. And I can't use that for that either. Come back on the third one now, and we're going to do all three things. And I'm going to start with the iron on the bottom. Have the brown underneath once it goes iron. And so you can see this will be here. So I'm just going to put some splotches of iron, just kind of randomly, just making this up as I go a little bit. And we'll put all three of these on here. Put that out there. And so as you can see, all this is still wet. So when we spritz it, it will start to do its thing. Okay. Now that one's been contaminated. I think I'm not going to worry about that too much. I didn't get much on that one for right now. I'll take my chances. And then we'll add a little bit of bronze to it. Now the bronze is a little bit thicker in consistency. And I guess I've got that taped off on the sides and things. So that's just kind of a hodgepodge there. And the different colors will show through as they start to change. Now it may take about an hour, but we've got plenty of time here for you start to see the changes in this. Now we know that our first end and our far closest end are the metallic or the iron. So we're going to use the brown aging solution on it, and all we need to do is just spritz that, get that wet, and we'll come down here. Now I also know that I have the iron in the second one. So I'm going to put some iron spritz for that. Good thing these work tables are all just work tables. Now I also have the blue-green solution, and let's see, the key is off, good. So I'll put the blue-green on here as well to take care of the bronze and copper. And then we use the blue-green on the balance of these. Okay. So they will start to do their thing. We'll let them work. All right. So let me turn on my key, turn on the upper camera. So that was our start there. Hopefully they'll change colors enough as we go along here. The next thing I want to look at is pulling out. I learned a couple things. You always learn something when you do these projects. At least I do. I've got 4 pieces here. Let's see. I'm wondering if this one is dry. That's dry enough. So I've got 4 different pieces that I put the primer on earlier. The little hollow form here, it has the road rash, the textured primer on it. The other 3 just have the gunship gray primer. There is a black primer that is available. I don't have it in our system yet, so I didn't put it in. And you may have noticed I created a kit this morning. If you're interested in trying this, the best way is to get the kit that has all the 3 color paints and the 2 primers and the aging agents, and I put it in a kit for you. And if you're a member of the Monday Methods wood and resin turning community, there's an additional discount in there. It is discounted 10% today on the website, and then there's an additional coupon if you're a member of the community. And if you see this today, you see this live stream, and you're not a member of the community, jump in there and join, and then you can save an extra, I think it's 5% in there, so you'll be saving 15% off the price of the kit, and it'll get you everything here to get you started. Okay, so here's what I learned this morning. On Thursday night, we were out here with our weekly meeting, and if you guys that were here remember, this was a piece of poplar, and I was putting dye on it, and what has happened, I put some lacquer on it as well. I put some finish on it, and I didn't do anything to this morning. And so where this lacquer finish is thick enough, the primer didn't take, or it just beat it up and ran off. So if you've got an old piece that you're going to apply this to, say you've colored it and say you finished it and you didn't like the way it came out, here's the important note from that. Be sure and go ahead and sand that finish. Open this thing back up, sand the film finish that you've got on, or sand that off, because the primer, in this case, wouldn't stick to the lacquer that I was spraying on there. So you're going to want to abrade that and probably cut that finish down through into the wood so that the primers will stick. Now, I'm still going to put some color on here and see what happens just for yucks, because I went through the trouble. My plan on this one was I wanted to make a metal rim, the iron rim here, and then let's say the copper on the outside and the copper on the inside. And I'm still going to do that just because I'm already this far. Now, it's not going to stick here probably, but I'm going to do it anyway. Then this is just a simple beater bowl that was out in the box. Okay, and we'll do, say, a bronze on it possibly. And then here's another small, another little piece of aspen, which I dropped off into flakes. But the texture, because we're going to get a texture, that's the beauty of these processes, is you can use a piece of wood. You can even see the turning marks in here. That's okay, because you're emulating something else. It's not necessarily supposed to look like wood. It's going to look more like, say, pottery if you want it to. So when you've got some beater pieces that you can't put back on the lathe, this is a great way to make something really interesting and cool out of them, okay? And then this is a little old hackberry hollow form. It's got a big crack in it. I'm not going to worry about that. The wood wasn't very pretty to look at all. So this one has the road rash primer on it, the textured primer. So I will coat this one with the iron paint, the iron metallic paint, and we'll spritz it. So we'll get a textured metal look out of this guy. And again, hopefully these will start to change by the time we wrap up. As we get close to 1 o'clock, that's the plan, okay? So whichever one to start with first. Well, I think I'll start with the hollow form, and I'm gonna set these over here. And I'll bring my hollow form up on my little work section here. It's still got a tenon on it, even though it doesn't stand straight, and that's okay. Ain't no thing there. And probably the best way is going to be for me to hold this sideways and do it in the overhead camera for you, and I'll paint on the iron finish. So my iron is here. And I'm gonna go to the overhead and fire away with any kind of questions that you got in here as I continue to hope that the feed is working like it's supposed to. It's always frustrating when you get out here and you run and you test everything first thing in the morning. I'm going to grumble some more. You test everything, everything works, everything's doing good. Then all of a sudden, not so much. Okay. So here is my iron metallic paint, and I'm just going to let this sit on one edge. And I'm just going to brush this all over the entire piece. And like I say, this is definitely a glove project. Get the upper rim. It's not hard to do. Not hard at all. And my mother, who is in here somewhere, I gave her a bunch of this for her. She's got all kinds of things she does around the yard, and she's got concrete and different things. This works on lots of different mediums: concrete, wood, plaster, ceramics, glass. It says plastic. They say plastic. I haven't tried it on plastic yet. But you can make some really neat looking stuff. And it's just this simple. Now, again, the trick, if there is a trick, is the more you play with it, the more you spritz it. And you can add additional layers of the paints and then spritz again. That's what makes the control of the different looks. And you just keep playing with it until you get it right. And right being the way you want it. It's whatever you want is what is right. Okay? Now I'm using big solid pieces. I've seen Michael, Alan Agar now is doing this on his Wheels of Delicacy. So don't think that you're limited to bowls and hollow forms. You can do it to any kind of piece that you've got going on. I just grab things out of the boxes because they're extra laying around. All right. And I'm watching over. I'm seeing some of the colors start to turn already very slightly on our test board there. So that's kind of good to see. We'll see how it goes. And sometimes if you, it doesn't completely cover the primer. So we may put this coat on and spritz it, and then we may come back and put another coat on. And one thing that I have found in any of the decorative type finishes that I do, Layering, the multiple layers really give it authenticity, and it has such a more genuine look to it. If you just do one coat, it kind of sort of looks like it, but if you'll do multiple layers, especially in multiple colors, it adds depth, it adds character. It can really make a big difference. So don't hesitate to do multiple layers, and even in multiple colors for the finishes. And I got a little bit there, but we'll just dab that on. So we'll close up the iron. I don't know if you can see, but I actually went and put a plastic bag on top of the lathe today. I'm really stepping up to try and take care of my lathe. All right. Now, iron spritzer. Just going to spritz the very top. I am in the overhead camera. Quick spritz there. Turn it on its side. And just give it a simple spritz. That's all we need to do. Don't flood it. It'll kind of run if you get too much on it. So just give it a nice, simple, easy spritz. And now we'll set this off up front here. We'll set it right out front. Let it lean crooked. We'll see how that starts to change over time. Let me show you the side camera there. You can see already these are starting to change. If you remember, that was, the red, and then we put, everything looked kind of, that was gray and that was gray, and you're starting to see, let me move that spritzer out of there. On this one, and especially down here, and especially if I turn up the board, let me try this for you. And get it with where it's not shiny. You can see the colors are starting to kick in. It does take a little while, okay? So we'll put that right back there. All right, let's see here. Jump to the front. Let me do this one that's kind of the goofball first. This is the one that I wanted to do the iron rim here, and then the copper inside and the copper outside. So that's what I'll do next on this one, and we'll jump to the overhead on that. And I'll get my, see if I can read that far. There's my iron, which is gray. And I'm going to take a paper towel and kind of clean off my brush here. Just for a little bit, just so I don't make too big a mess. And the top of my jar is messy. For once, I'm actually trying to stay clean. That's what a novel concept for me. Now, I don't know what's going to happen right in here. We'll just go with it and see. And I'm actually going to try and paint it kind of close to the actual profile. You should be able to see that. I didn't, when I thought about, decided to do this the other day, I didn't have time to do one. It was real popular, and you'll see Nick doing them with a rim, a band on a bowl with they've got little bolt heads, it's actually, wood dowel caps. So it looks like you've got a metal band on a piece. So that technique works out really well. I just don't have the extra layer here, but that's the concept. Now, once these do change later today, I will post pictures on the Spiracraft page and in the group page. The group's got, 150 members now, growing nicely. And so we have fun when we meet on Thursday nights. We talk about all kinds of things, whatever people are interested in or have questions about. It's kind of based on the Monday methods that we do here. Is the spritz water? No, Dad, the spritz is not water. It is I don't know what the chemical is. It is the patinaing agent that makes the paints actually change. So I'm going to copper now for the inside and the outside on this one. So don't ask me what the spritz is as far as the chemical goes. It's a blue-green and it's a brown. And I think I will do the inside first with the copper. Make sure it's stirred up in there real good. Curious to see if it covers over where the primer didn't want to take. So I'll come right in along in here and just paint that right to the edge. It's amazing, my hand is getting steadier with age. I'm not sure what the deal is. Not that it's steady, it's just getting steadier. And especially considering I'm working with these Harbor Freight chip brushes. Again, I'm not concerned if it goes over just a little bit, like it did right there. I'm not too worried about that for what we're up to. The most fun, this, and it's hard to show you in the short term, are there really white spots on the rim? Probably. Well, you're seeing probably just a sheen there, Art. The real fun in this, using this product, is in the course of a day, as you go back and spritz it over and over and make it change. And you can spritz just part of it, so you get, the more you spritz, the more effect you get. Okay, and that's kind of really the fun part is this is just the basic setup, getting it going. As you move through the process, that's really the fun part to me. When they first came out with it, and I was over with Don Rollins, the owner of Chromacraft, and I was asking him, he says, well, yeah, you kind of keep going back and add some more, spritz it some more later on, put another layer on and spritz again, and spend a little time with it, because each one comes out a little bit different. Yeah, or you're seeing the lights reflecting on the wet surface. So I'm just going around the outside here. Almost there. So you understand why, as the kitchen show, you've got to have the different pieces kind of already primed up, because if I primed this, then you have to wait an hour or so for the primer to dry. If it was nice and hot in here, well, it would go a little bit faster. Okay. So it definitely is a kitchen show style kind of thing, and I'm starting to see the green. I'm really starting to see the green pop up now here on the copper and the bronze and in the mix. All right, so these are really starting to kick a little bit in the colors there. So I don't know, it's been probably 20 minutes maybe since I spritzed those. So you can see that it is starting to work and show the color. And I'll lift that up again. Try and get you where you can see the color starting to come in. You can see how we're starting to get our patinas in here and here in our mixed one. I like these mixed style the best because you have all kinds of things going on. Okay, so now we need to spritz our piece here back in the overhead. So I'll just spritz the iron first, right in the center there. And then I'll come along with the blue-green for the copper. Spritz the copper. Get the middle. Try not to get so much because it's going to kind of pool up down there in the middle a little bit. Okay. So I will set that out front on my table. So we'll set this guy out front here. I'm trying not to lean my nice coat into the colors. If you're going to do this kind of work, and you've got a nice wood turning smock like this, don't wear it. Go down to the thrift store, give them $2 for a windbreaker, a little $2 windbreaker with whatever. That's what I normally work in for this kind of work. You're going to get junk all over it. Save your good turning smocks for turning and going to the club and all that good stuff. Keep them unless you don't care what it looks like, then that, you do what you want. But get yourself a $2 one for this really messy stuff from the thrift store. Support your thrift store. Maybe it's an animal rescue thrift store, and give them some money and get something that you don't care about. Because if I lean over into this, I'm going to own it. Okay? All right. So here we got these guys. And I'm saving those other 3 again just for putting primer on, just to go with the process. I've got those 3 little more out there, and just to use up time if I need to today. So this one and this one is really rough. And I think I'll put the iron. I got iron on there. The copper. Let's do bronze. Let's go ahead and do bronze on this one. So there is my bronze. Like I say, I just did up a number of these so we'd have stuff to work with. And let me go back to the overhead. And hopefully the stream is streaming along for you. So here goes the bronze. And this has a bunch of texture, torn out grain. This is aspen, not sanded or anything. And so you get a natural texture just from the piece of wood. If you got a piece that you never finished just quite right, and it's lumpy and bumpy, this is the way to make it really cool. Okay? It goes on super easy. As you can see, it's not rocket science at all. And so here you can see all this texture, all that end grain just standing up. We just blast that down in there. And I'll do the outside here. I'm leaving the very base not completely covered. And then we'll turn around and do the inside, and then we'll spritz the whole thing. This one will be cool because it's got these natural edges to it and whatnot. Be kind of interesting. So again, the application is not difficult by any means. It's a great one if you've got the kids, the grandkids, and they want to come out and work with you in the shop. They want to do something. This is something that anybody can do with a brush and make something that looks really neat when it's done. So if you want to involve other folks that don't have necessarily turning experience, but they'd like to come out and hang out with you in the shop, because we all know that when we make something and it looks neat, we get the rewards from the satisfaction from doing something like that. This is a great way to do it. You've turned the rough piece, and let the kids, the grandkids, the neighbors, good for school projects. If you demonstrate at the schools or local things like that, this would be a great project to show them that they can do to anything. So they can go down, mom and dad can go down to the Home Depot and get the concrete yard ornaments, and this works great on the concrete. And they can patina up, or the parents can do this for that matter. Patina up your yard stuff, right, Mom? Parents can do it too. And do all kinds of fun stuff for your yard. It doesn't have to be just for wood turning. All right? So we've got that guy covered nice and quick. And I'll set that off there. And let me see how I can show you this, just so you can see. I'll put it in the end camera. So you can see there's a lot of texture in there. Oop, I'm trying to get the light to do right. If I could almost reach all the way across that piece. I got my camera so far out front. So you can see it's all rough and bumpy. Okay, but that's all right. That's kind of part of the deal. I hope I can get my my camera changer here clean today. So again, this will use the blue-green. And I think I'll just hold it by one corner and I'll do the bottom. Spray over there, come around the top edge, spritz the inside, and we'll sit. And I can see the other one is already starting to change the one I just did a few minutes ago. So that's pretty cool. All right, so I'll just kind of ease this guy out front here. I'm going to just kind of, you won't see me, I'm going to walk around, put it on the front of this table. All right. And have a quick sip of water. I know what I'm going to do for this last one. For this one, this small one here, since we've got a double there, single color, we'll do all three colors on this one, on this little bowl right here. So we'll just go crazy on this guy and have a good time. Let me show you already how much this one has started to change, and that hasn't been that long. You can see the green over here by my thumb, and some of the rust is starting to show up. So it's already starting to work, which is pretty cool. All right, back to, I'm gonna stay in the overhead, but I'm gonna reach across here. So let me go out there just while I reach out and put this back down. Now, looking at my holoform here, I think I want to spritz it again. It's starting to turn a little bit, but I think I'm going to hit it again while it's still wet. Encourage it along. And that's the key to this, is just come back and hit it again. The surface looked dry, and I thought, you know what? Let's put another spritz on there of the iron. Put that right back out front there. Get that guy to go iron for us. All right. Any kind of questions? Mom says yes, indeed. All right, overhead camera, multiple colors. Let's see what we can do here. Let's put an iron rim again. I'm kind of on the iron rim kick today. So we'll put iron on the rim. And we'll let the other colors bleed over onto that. So again, having lots of cheap brushes to go through if you're going to be mixing colors like I am here today is a good idea. Let's go with the bronze. I'm sorry, I put my arm in the way there. Bronze has got the heavier texture to it of the two, of the three actually in the paints. And I'm just going to put my finger in here to kind of hold that down. And I'm not going to cover it entirely. Just here and there, and I'm going to let these blend together. See if I can't grab that whole thing with my hand. All right. And that takes care of my bronze. We'll do the same thing with the copper. And this is really simple to do. The bronze piece I just did is already changing to bronze nicely out there. So I'll do the inside here in the copper now. And I don't care if it goes over on the other colors, blends in. What I'll do is I'll try and get a whole coat in here, and then I'll wipe the brush off to do the outside before I stick it back in, because I've picked up some of these other colors. Okay. Make sure that everything is covered. And I'm just going to let that iron, this is the iron, I'm just going to let that iron kind of drip down right there. get that excess color off so I don't go through too many brushes. I don't have a cleaning bowl here. Grab this guy, turn it right side or upside down. Cover the remaining gray, some of the copper, or some of the bronze, excuse me. And after your first round, you see what your initial pattern looks like. Then you come back and add whichever color you want more of, or if you have too much of a color and you want to hide one, you can come back and add the next layer. And again, as I was saying earlier, layering is really, to me, one of the important aspects of it. See if I can't get that underneath my fingers there. Okay. Brush that off, and we're going to set this off. So we'll spritz this guy. Oh, look at that, it ran over the top. So we'll just kind of do some of that around there. Again, it's so much fun here. And we'll spritz the rim, that little bit of iron that we've got there with its spritzer. Spritz with the blue-green for the copper and the bronze. Turn it over and do the same. And that's ready to set off and let it start to work. There. My gloves are a mess, but that's why we wear them. One thing that I find is I go through a lot more of the spritzing sprays than I do of the paints. So if you get into this or you want to get in, you may want to pick up a couple extra bottles of the spritzes, because you keep spritzing and you're using more of that than the actual paints. And so you may run out of that, and you'd hate to run out in the middle of the project, if you know what I mean. And I'm just going to take a fresh paper towel, kind of clean these gloves off real quick. And as I come up with the next little part of the project here, I'll see if anybody's got any kind of questions. What's my time look like? 12:03, so we've got plenty of time. Okay. Again, let me show you the board here is really starting to change nicely. Maybe I'll put it in here. Let me put it in overhead. So you can see how the board is starting to change nice. The patinas are starting to come, and I get that where the light's not too bright on it. Okay. And I think we'll go ahead and spritz this guy again while we're standing here. Give it another shot. So that's the blue-green on the 3 in the middle. The brown for the rust there, the brown for the rust there. This one has all 3. All right. And as you can see, if we didn't get enough spritz, or if we didn't get enough paint on, well then when that dries, we'll come back and put another layer of paint on. Okay. So there's all those pieces are going right along. So what I want to show you now is just putting the primer on. Any kind of project can work. This is just a little hollow form. It was actually probably a lidded box is what I was planning. I don't know what I was actually planning. Something I turned out on the road. God only knows. Here is, just an ugly bowl. I've played with colors. Again, so if we wanted to put the primers on, real straightforward. I'll go to the overhead camera, and I'll just use the Gunboat Gray primer on this one. Sorry for my hand reaching over there. Of course, if you've got your tenon left on there, that's great. And we'll coat up these 2 different pieces, and then we'll go back to spritzing and looking at our other work. And again, it does take time, elapsed time, which is the downside of a project like this. So it helps to have the kitchen show aspect going on. And then again, the finishes, let me talk about the finishes. My video was interrupted. Hope it comes back soon. The finishes, if you'll use a satin finish or a matte finish, that's best. Yeah, I see it's buffering there. Hopefully it's back here now. Not much I can do about the bad buffer today. One of those days. While it was buffering, I was talking about the finish. It can be a glossy finish, but a satin or a matte finish is probably a better choice, but that's completely up to you. So there's our bottom primered up. And we'll just turn this guy over and primer the top. And then I'll road rash the other one, give it a texture in the primer. And you do want to let your primer dry. And of course, it's, like I said, it takes about an hour for the primers to dry. But this, you know, I'm showing you this because to show you how simple this is really just painting this on. The real fun comes in playing with multiple layers of multiple colors. And start out with some old beater pieces that you got around. So, you know, you don't feel like you're ruining something. Of course, you can always start over. Just prime the whole thing again if you don't like what you got. You can prime the whole thing up and just start fresh. Okay. So that one is primed and ready to set off and let it dry. And I love the way I'm looking at these pieces out front, how they're starting to come along nicely. So I'm just going to set this guy somewhere way out of the way. Hopefully it doesn't fall from there. And I want to bring this piece of, I want to bring a piece over here. Remember the rimmed piece that we started with? I'll clean off my little work table here just a little bit. We'll just blend all that together. So I'm going to reach through over the camera, sorry, as I'm in the overhead. There is our rim piece where I did the iron on the top and the brass or copper on the outside. And you can see how that, if I can get the light to not do it, you can see how that's starting to turn really nice in there and in the middle. This piece is looking really neat. So I'm going to spritz this one again. A little bit of blue-green for the outside and the inside. A bit more brown for the iron. Keep it working. This is going to be a neat piece. This one is looking really cool already. All right, so let me pop that. Let me do this where I don't lean my head over in the middle of it. So you can see how that's starting to look really cool. All right, another natural edge aspen piece that's green. Probably looking crazy in the key. So I'm going to turn off the key there for a moment. So hopefully that doesn't look like the back wall. Road rash. We wanted to do road rash with this. We want to give this one a textured finish. Hey Mike, how you doing? We've been having fun today. We've been buffering like crazy, jumping in and out, feed not doing what it wants to. So hopefully it's making it all the way up there to Canada, where you're hanging out. Here's my road rash brush over here. So the road rash again is the one with all the texture in it. Give it a stir, lift it up off the bottom, get all that texture suspended into the medium. Okay. This brush did start to stiffen up a little bit since it's been about an hour and a half since I first used it. And it's stiffer than I want. So I'm going to just discard that one and grab a fresh one from Harbor Freight. And I'll get the rim here, and then I'll turn it over and do the bottom. And so again, this piece, it's got some natural edges here. It's not been sanded. It's got some tool marks to it. That little hole right there is actually from the tongs on the logging truck picking the piece up. I recognize that. So let's go ahead and do this whole bottom. We got lifted up grain here. That just adds to the character. Just brush it down in there nice and heavy, and you can see the bumps of the texture that we're getting. Again, this is just the primer, so we're going to let this completely dry, which won't happen before we wrap up here today. But then I'll come back and paint it with the iron and maybe a mix of the other colors. Because remember, you're not limited to just one. And I'm going to go ahead and paint this whole bottom with the primer. So I'm watching our pieces out there turn. And I'm happy that they're turning the way they are. So as soon as I finish this coat, I'm going to spritz those again. Several of them. The hollow form looks like it's ready to be spritzed again. And the bronze piece. So if your texture on your wood is really, really deep, you have to brush a little bit harder. Just get you a good wet brush to get the material, the primer down in there, and then everything's going to bond to it. Again, as I found out, if it's got a film finish on it, you may want to go ahead and sand that up, break that surface tension so that can go ahead and bond. There we go. And now we'll jump inside here. So the primering part doesn't take long at all. It goes really quick. Gives you that wonderful texture. I don't know how they came up with the name Road Rash. I mean, I kind of got an idea. At least they didn't call it Roadkill, just the Road Rash. But this stuff is pretty fun. No, it's really fun. It's not pretty fun, it's really fun. And we can get these great effects. And you'd never know it was a piece of wood. And again, I love it for, I've got hundreds of pieces that are just unfinished and one-offs and whatever, never got past a certain stage with them. Imagine that. And this is a great way to turn them into something quite unique and useful and interesting looking. Okay, so I'm going to set this guy off and we'll bring another piece over here. So there it is, all textured up. That's the texture primer. And we'll just let that dry. Get my paper towel and clean off my gloves. Some of this off of there. So I don't want to contaminate my other pieces that I've got going with the primer on top necessarily. Wipe down my little work table. Okay. And I'm going to bring this bronze piece back in here, so I want to spritz it again. It's starting to look pretty neat. Okay. So let's give it blue-green. And I think I can hold this one with 2 fingers. We'll give it another shot there. Another shot there. We'll take it out. We'll grab the other one here. Kind of interesting with the dye colors in the bottom of that. But you can see how these colors are starting to pop up here. I think I put iron on that rim too. Okay. And I'm going to spritz the hollow form one more time. It's all iron. Eventually we'll get that scaly iron look to it. All right. And again, I'm super happy. I know I'm reaching over under the camera. I'm super happy with the way this one is starting to look. Great contrast between the center and the outer edge. My dad says major buffer now. Yeah, I see that. I'm going to daub a little bit of that extra out of there. So I turn this over. So I didn't do the bottom at all on that one. Okay. So that one's looking great. I'm really happy with that. And our board is looking wonderful over here. I'm going to bring the board over here underneath the overhead camera again. So you can see how our colors are really starting to pop in here now. All right. The iron takes a little bit longer to come along. The bronze and the copper come along much quicker. So great things. And Arthur says I crashed, video interrupted. It's the day that everything's going south. One of those days, one of those days.